Hello and welcome back to Building Momentum, the show where we peel back the curtain on the exciting and often chaotic world of building a successful SaaS. I'm Yash, your host for this show, where every episode we bring to you the stories and strategies of founders who've been in the trenches, conquering churn, scaling their team, and building products that people and businesses love. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Sebastian from Alphana. Alphana converts your videos, podcasts, and ideas into 30 plus shareable content pieces like articles, social posts, or concise. We're excited to hear their story and the lessons they've learned along the way. We'll be dissecting the wins, the losses, and everything in between. So buckle up, grab your headphones, and get ready to dive into the world of SaaS. Hey Sebastian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's beautiful out here today. How about you, Yash?
I'm doing great as well. Where are you based?
Yeah, so I'm in Miami, Florida.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great to know. So let's start with the basics, right? So tell us what is the big bad problem that people and businesses have as on date that you're solving with Alphana?
Yeah, it's always an interesting question. So I guess it kind of goes back into a little bit of context. I've worked with hundreds of creators, founders, marketers in my past, from running an agency to working at Universal Music and all of that. And one of the things that's so consistent across all of them, I've seen them struggle with like, all right, what do I need to do from a content strategy? What do I create? Where do I post? How do I make enough content? But I've got all this other stuff I need to do, right? It's like the typical even founder challenge, right? And what I saw was that they were just overwhelmed by it. And I think with AI and looking at, how a business could truly grow, we wanted to let them focus on what they love and just let Alphana handle the rest. So if you could just focus on what you do best, let Alphana do the rest, that's where our ultimate vision is. So you can focus on your craft.
So if I'm a video creator or a content creator or podcaster, I essentially do what I love best, which is to have conversations or create videos or create content. And then Alphana can do a great job of figuring out, converting that into different forms of content that are appropriate for the platform that it is being posted on. Would that be a fair way to summarize?
100%. Because if you think about once you shoot that piece of content, the work doesn't stop there. It's like you want people to see it, to hear it, to watch it. And there's a whole set of work that needs to happen. But, you're already moving on to the next thing. So how do we take that off your plate as much as possible until one day it could be fully autonomous?
Interesting. That's really meaningful as well. So one of the guests that we had earlier on the show was Philip, who's building a company called MakerSuite, which sort of helps you with everything that happens pre-creation of the content, right? So it is essentially SEMrush for video creators and content creators. So
Nice.
the way SEMrush helps you figure out what blogs to write, what content gaps exist, what keywords to include and stuff like that. They help you figure out what videos to create, what titles are people searching and stuff like that. So I think there's a huge role that AI has to play in figuring out what to talk about, and then once you've spoken about it, figuring out how and where to distribute, right? So in the content creation chain, value chain, I think AI plays a big role. And so one of the things that you mentioned was also the fact that you had a couple of exits before. I think with Zeki and with Raz Interactive as well. So just a simple question, right? Why not just chill, right? So why go through the grind of building everything from scratch? Why do that?
I asked myself that
And you're
question.
in
It's like,
Florida as well.
why in Florida? Yeah, I mean, I should just be hanging out by the beach, getting Mai Tais, right? Yeah, it's always a question. Building a company is never easy, but I've kind of grew up with entrepreneurship. My dad, my parents, they've always had businesses. I've seen business go successful. I've seen them fail and start 100% from scratch, and it's like these constant ups and downs. So I think I kind of grew up in that environment. I really enjoy building businesses. When we got acquired, we were working at the company for about 2 years. During that time, we got acquired again. So it was like another exit happening at the same time. But, there was just something that's like just itch that you want to scratch. It's like, it was time to go. I left, kind of took some time, tried to figure out like, what you want to do. And it's like when you see challenges happening and you hear from different people what's going on, like I can't help but to want to help them and figure out a solution to it. And go out and build, and, we did it. And, during this process, I mean, it's, who says Elon Musk says that, being an entrepreneur or building a business is like chewing glass, right?
Yeah,
or running a startup, and it really is. And it's like you could take that time, but you shouldn't go off and just try to start a company because you want to. Like you've got to really want to, and you've got to be really connected to the problem that you are trying to solve and the people that you're trying to serve. Because if
yeah,
not, there's nothing else that's going to go motivate you, right? There's
yeah,
your friends, everybody else. Like some might be the hype, but a lot of them are just gonna be like, well, why? Or it's most people aren't made for it. So you really have to believe
yeah,
in what you want to do and the problems that you want to solve and the people that you want to help in order for you to keep going, because that's what drives you inside.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Fair point here. And so this is like very, so I understand the itch that you're talking about as well, about building something valuable, building something that solves other people's problems, and the joy that you feel when there's some urgent, important, frequent problem that exists in someone's life. You've sort of taken that away. Seeing that and talking to those people, it's great to do that. And so with Alphana,
Yeah.
can you give us a sense of the size and scale of the product? Where is it today? How many people are using it? If you could talk a little about that.
Sure. We're still early stage. We started off, we're bootstrapped, founders putting in
Hmm.
money. We had two
Hmm.
angels that were just so believed in it that we brought them in. But for the most part, a bootstrap company is how we've been set up. And
Hmm.
we bootstrapped our last businesses as well and
Yeah.
built them from scratch.
Hmm.
I think with this one's a little bit different because we see the potential on where to go. We're a small team,
Hmm.
two of us as co-founders, and we have two developers as well. So we all work together, just like
Hmm.
really small team, but nimble, fast, and what I would say is probably the best in the industry. My co-founder is
Yeah.
like creative by nature.
Yeah.
Studied architecture. She's led design at our agency, done thousands of whether web, product, UX
Hmm.
type of experiences. And so she brings a lot of that user-centric
Yeah.
design to what we do. And, and,
Hmm.
and from what we see and what people talk about, like that's something that helps to differentiate.
Hmm.
When you can have a partner like that to work together along with your engineering team to all get together and come together to solve a problem, that's where you can really
Yeah.
truly create a beautiful experience. And so, yeah, small team. I would say, just in the last about week and a half, we've had hundreds of users just sign up in using
Hmm.
the product. And so
Oh,
we are
nice.
interacting with them almost every day. It's actually incredible to see. So we're still very early in our journey, but from what we see, this is for us, we're in this for the decade. That's the way
Yeah.
that we take a look at this.
Nice and interesting to hear that. By the way, my co-founder Kaushik, he also he's also our head of design, and he also studied architecture.
No way.
So yeah, so he did. And so he practiced architecture in the US, moved back to India, and then
Right.
he was part of the client, and then we sort of really liked working together, and started working on designs and on for the
You
web
know,
form factor.
I mean, you might agree, but like their minds work differently.
Mhm.
You kind of like you might see something one way, and once you have a
Yeah,
conversation with them, it's all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay,
yeah,
yeah, let's
yeah,
take that step back. Let's take
yeah.
a look at that, and that's always great to have. I don't know if you've experienced the same way, but
That
it's
happens
incredible.
very, very often, right? So I
Yeah,
used to think that, so Kaushik, I used to think that I know how to, I'm not a UI UX designer, but I
right.
generally just looking at a lot of different SaaS products. That's sort of my job. I do that all day in and day out. And so I thought that I have a good idea of how to present some information, how to design a journey and stuff like that. More often than not, he comes up with an approach that's not part of playbooks that you typically see. And those
Yeah.
approaches tend to test better, work better. And I think I don't really know why or how. I'm just lucky I have it, and glad to know that you have that as well as your co-founder. So that's great to have. Another thing that would love to understand. So Alphana is as a SaaS product is a self-serve, right? Expected to discover it themselves, sign up, use it, like it, and then pay for it themselves. More often than not, a self-serve SaaS, much like Alphana, would expect people to have the whole journey by themselves with little to no human intervention of any sort. I noticed on your website though you have a book a demo button. Why why do that book a demo? Because even if you close a customer for, I think, for let's say $30 a month, it's like $350 annually, which is, the economics won't sit. Right? So you typically have
Right.
book a demo, get in touch with our sales team or something like that for an enterprise SaaS, which goes for like $20,000 a year or something like that. So
Right.
why have that on the site?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we added that to the site and because I want to talk to more people, right? The more that I could have interactions with those that need or use our product, the better it is for us as a company because that gives us the edge in how we take the product to where it is to go. And that's how I've been able to meet so many people. And what I've noticed is that those that book the demo are ones that have been, like they've gone through a rough patch with previous software providers and they really want to see what's going on and they really want to dive deeper into it, which helps me get more insight to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And those calls are, even though I'll do a demo if it comes up, but sometimes I'm just learning on what are they doing today. Like, I got to go here, I got to grab this video, and then I got to log into this software and I got to do this. And then I open up a spreadsheet or a Notion and I do this. What I am doing is looking at, well, how do I ensure that you never have to do that again so that I can come back to my team, to my co-founder, to my engineering team, so we can figure out a way to help customers like that. And not everybody books. So, if you get hundreds, hundreds of people are not booking on that link, right? Everybody is going completely through self-serve. But it also gives me an opportunity, even if I take a look at somebody who's enterprise, right, that might come through, you don't know what potential opportunities might come through there. And so I leave it there as a way for me to be able to interact with those who really want to take advantage, and I can get insight and I can in turn help them with what they're trying to accomplish.
Understood. So essentially trying to have as many conversations as possible with people who are interested in using Alphana in some way, shape or form. But here's another question that I've always had with products in this category, right? And this is interesting because for the last decade or so, probably even more, any SaaS product was divided into three categories. So you had systems of record, which are your CRM, CRPs, emails, and stuff like that. And then you had systems of engagement, which is your Slack and customer support and stuff like that, which helps you engage with your stakeholders, employees, team members, or customers, investors, whatever the case may be. And then you had systems of intelligence, which is you'd have like Tab, Power BI, and all of those, which help you make better decisions. And so with AI, however, there's a new category that has come up, which is systems of outcomes, right? And which I think Alphana falls. So I go in and then I put in some data and then it gives me some outcome, which is what most AI products are also, right? So ChatGPT, Gemini, all of these are systems of outcomes. And one of the major challenges that a system of outcomes faces is that a customer will stay with Alphana only until Alphana is the best there is out there, because there's no data within Alphana that keeps me glued to the system, right? So if I'm using Salesforce as my CRM, and I've used it for a year or so, so much amount of data is there in the system that it makes the churn very unlikely. I'll not be
Right.
able to move out of it. Same for emails, similar for Slack, and similar for all of those platforms. That all of my data, it's just difficult to move out. But with systems of outcomes, what are the things that you plan to do or you already thought about to make sure that people don't churn away and they stay? And so, like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I love that the way you framed it as system of outcomes because it's always sometimes it's hard to be able to explain on those areas. The whole point of Alphana on where we're going, we started in this area of helping others be able to generate content. We're automating those workflows. We also made it so flexible so that when something new happens in a month, a new trend in 3 months, you could actually recustomize the entire workflow almost like Lego blocks, right? That those are one of the things. So, and when I talk to people and I'm seeing some people put review videos, they're like, wow, this is actually the most flexible platform I've ever used, which is, it's one of those things where you get to see like from your customers how they talk about your product. And so I think number one, we built that in advance because we knew that this was going to change constantly, right? Like every month. And it's great because, just a couple days ago, something happened. I can go in, boom, boom, boom. It's up. Everybody's got now like, it's just that type of thing. But the second piece is kind of where we're going. In order for this to become, so our vision ultimately is that the entire process is autonomous, right? It works for you. You put in what the necessary outcome that you're looking for, and we can go to work for you. And so let me give you an example. Just imagine one day you do come in and you're like, hey, I'm a content creator. I'm trying to quit my job. And this is a real scenario, right? They're working, they work 2 jobs during a day, but they love to create music. They're trying to get out of that. So they're trying to figure out how they can make money on the side in order to get their business going. And so in this case, it's like, well, how much do you need to be able to quit your job, both jobs full time? For example, let's say it's $5,000 a month. Well, fantastic. Making this your system to be able to put in that information, and for Alphana to be able to create the content strategy to be able to drive the business that you need in order for you to make at minimum 5,000. And obviously we want to be able to 10x that, right? How do we get you to now make 10, 100K a month on how it is? Because in the end, it's about the outcome. If you're creating this content and you're trying to put stuff out there, in the end, for most people, it's a business. And it's either going to help drive more business to your core business. Maybe you own a SaaS company. Maybe your whatever it is, or your software, whatever it is going to be that top of funnel leads that's going to come through. But still, you have an outcome that you need to do. You got to deliver revenue for your company, or you're trying to quit your job and start just full time so that you can just go do your passion, which is music. And so, in the long run, that's what makes the stickiness, is that eventually you can be able to operate and to be able to get to those types of outcomes versus like, I just need 100 views or I just need a blog post. Like, that's not what you're coming to Alphana for, even though it's here now. But every company starts somewhere, right? But it's where it evolves to. And that's what we have our eye on.
That's so refreshing to hear. And I tell you why, Sebastian, because when this is a conversation that happens with any other SaaS product, and this is how, like, one of the really bigger mistakes that we also committed. Client Joy was our own SaaS product, which we grew to about 13,000 customers, 90 plus countries. And it was a CRM for freelancers and agents. And our whole retention strategy for the first 3 years of our existence, we exited after 4 years. We got acquired by a US-based company.
Congrats.
But our whole thank you. But our whole retention strategy for the first 3 years of our existence was that, hey, we'll have so much of the customer data that they will be forced to stick with us. And that's just a very poor way to look at it. In hindsight, I now realize that, and it's so refreshing to hear you say that, hey, if we help our customers solve their goals, accomplish their goals, then and just tie ourselves with what they want to do, then that this question itself sort of becomes a little irrelevant. And that's a good way to think about it. Another thing that and so thank you for thinking about it that way, because most SaaS founders don't, and this is something that I encourage every up and coming SaaS founder to do. The other thing that I want to understand is that for a platform like Alphana, I think podcasters, video creators, content creators, there are a couple of different ideal clients that you can go after. And to go after them, there are at least 10 different distribution channels that you can use. So you can use SEO, you can use paid marketing, email, outbound, stuff like that. How do you decide? So one, what are the current channels that you're doing for Alphana? And how do you decide which ones to try first? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The ones that we initially focused on was where we saw a lot of opportunity for other podcast creators or video creators. Let's just call them video creators for a second, right? Whether you host a podcast with video, you're on YouTube, any one of those. And what we saw was they would focus on one channel and a lot of others don't have. Like, for example, there was this one podcast show that we worked with that they just thought Instagram and TikTok just doesn't work, right? It didn't work for them. It doesn't bring them more views to their channel or anything like that. And they were just looking at it completely wrong. And they were also only focused on the video content, but they didn't focus on like text content, right? People, not everyone watches video all the time, but video is extremely important, and short form is where you can drive a massive amount of top of funnel. But if you could just click a button and easily now reach an entire portion of an audience that was never going to watch your content to begin with, why not? And so, we started taking the top channels we focused on. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, X Threads, right? Instagram, TikTok, YouTube obviously was number one. That was like the first top, right? As the initial input and generate. Those were the main ones, including blog, newsletter. Like, we just saw, like, if you're going to create a comprehensive marketing strategy and you didn't know what to do, if you clicked a button, it did it for you. And now eventually it'll distribute it. But for now, you can now just go copy, paste, and place it. Your blog post, your newsletter, your titles and descriptions and meta tags, everything you need for your video. Here's some YouTube shorts and Instagram clips that you can share on those social networks, because we actually find those clips for you, and we're getting good feedback that it's finding like great clips. Actually, I have to tell you this because I had one which was amazing. They sent me a screenshot. They literally opened up Alphana to test it. They put a video in there. It extracted a clip. They posted that to YouTube, and it already has almost 1,000 views within 24 hours. Wow. They've never had 1,000 views on a video before.
Yeah.
And it's because it found the right moment. And I think that's what's important is like, focus on the channels that can really bring results. Just because you come in here, you don't need to use every single channel. That's why we made it flexible. We have one person who's like, I only do YouTube. I just want my YouTube video and I just want my YouTube shorts. And then I want to send out an email to everybody so that they can go watch my YouTube video. And maybe I'll post. Great. Boom. Click. Here's your workflow. That is all that it will produce for you. But if you just click this template, it'll automatically provide the rest. But that's okay because every person, right, and every individual, and that's what I've learned, is that everyone has their preferences on how they do things. But what we were talking about earlier, as long as we can get you to that outcome, that's what's really important, right? It's just like when you hire a whole team and you dictate exactly how they have to do everything. But in the end, it's on the outcome. So if you do things a little bit differently, but you're able to get us to our goal, fantastic, right? That's where you should be able to, that's where you should measure success.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think so for all the people who are listening, watching, Sebastian mentioned a couple of times the workflow. I think from this conversation, you might not be able to grasp as to what that workflow helps you do or the template creation helps you do. So I strongly recommend just we'll be linking Alphana in the wherever you are, like Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, wherever you are. We'll be linking Alphana in the description. You can there's a great, I think, 50-second video on the website that I'd encourage you to check out, and you'll be able to understand how simple is it. Right? So just moving blocks, the Lego piece that Sebastian mentioned, it's really simple. It's extremely simple. So do check that out as well. So Sebastian, that brings us to the last part of this conversation, which is where we ask founder questions. So one of the questions that that our previous guest, who was Marek from Context Minds, he is building a platform that is a category creator. So a category like that doesn't exist. It helps you plan and organize your content using AI. And so it's sort of a mixture of SEMrush plus Miro and a couple of other tools and platforms like Spyfoo and so on and so forth in one single place. And one of the challenges that he's currently trying to solve for Context Minds is how do you make sure that you're effectively communicating value to your customers, right? Whether it's on your website or in your emails or wherever you are. How do you make sure, like, what's the process that you go through to make sure you're effectively communicating?
Yeah, that's a great question, which kind of coincides with positioning as well, right? One is you've got one area where you want to make sure you're communicating to your customers the way that they see the value, because some see value a little bit differently, right? And so there's that initial learning phase. So for example, when we hear from our customers, wow, this is my favorite, what I love to do, or wow, I can, I can't believe I can do this. This helped me achieve X. I then will take that terminology and repeat it right back to them and to others, because if you start seeing something repetitive, that means potentially others probably will resonate the same way. And it's always a challenge because I think sometimes people forget what that value is. And so you want to be able to plug that into your different channels, whether that's in your email, whether it's in the copy on your website, right? Like, don't just list features, right? And we are all guilty of this, myself included. Don't just list the features. Like, you really got to focus on the benefits and what it can do for them, and start plugging it in. So what you've learned from your customers, like if one customer is like, wow, this is like, I don't know, like the most flexible whatever, and help me do XYZ, repeat that again to you in the website copy and on all these different channels. Also take advantage of, like, if people ask questions, let's say in chat, like not only answer the question, but try to throw in a one-liner about the value of what it does. Right. You can do that, like right back on your responses in your chat, in your email. Another spot that I see a lot of visibility is a knowledge base, right? People will go into the knowledge base to figure out how to do something, but not only do they learn how to do something, they're also realizing, wow, wait, actually I can use this to, get another 1,000 views on my video, or I could probably make another $1,000 a month if I do XYZ, if that's what your tool does. So try to add that value in the places that your customers might live already. And so you've got your channels, like your chat, your knowledge base, your website, and just keep that as like constant, And so that would be my recommendation. First, understand what they're saying already, so you can take that language and then give it right back to them.
Interesting. And so like one of the things that we also used to try to do at Context at Client Joy was identify where does the SaaS falls. Like, are you helping them save time, save money, or help them make more money? So out of these three categories, we identified where do we fall, and then over
Right.
there, what are the typical metrics that they care about? So try and figure out how can you bring that into your statements as well. But this is great, right? So think of every opportunity where your customer is going to interact with any of the assets that you have, whether it is help articles or drip campaigns or of course the website and stuff like that. But think of all of those as points where you can communicate value, including the support chat. So that's great. What's the question that you have, that the problem or an open wind that you're having with yourself, trying to figure out what to do next, that I should ask our next guest?
I don't know if I have the perfect question, but the one question I'm always curious, and I love just seeing people's stories because it's always different. Everyone has a different way of doing it, is the path to their first million in revenue as a company. What was it that they did, and the pain and the good, the bad, and the ugly in order to get to the
Yeah.
first million in revenue? Because for every company, that's always going to be a challenge, because at that
Yeah.
time you're still figuring out product market fit.
Yeah.
But to break it down as actionable as they can, right? What
Yeah.
were the steps? What did they do? What really worked for them, and what should people stay away from? So
Yeah.
I would throw that as a question. It's always fun to hear and see
Yeah.
what others are doing at those stages, because it helps to spark other ideas that maybe you knew and you just forgot, or something you never thought of before. Which those are always the
Yeah.
best, right? You never thought of it
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd throw that for
Very
the next.
interesting. So
Yeah.
for our first, like very short, for our first million in revenue, like almost nothing worked. But there were just few couple of things that worked and that worked really well. I think in our case, it was just luck that we were able to land onto a particular channel that worked for ourselves significantly better. Documented that as a part of the blog, which will also link that. Over here, it's like a 4,000 word article on what worked, what didn't. So I'll not go into that. But great question. I'll make sure I'll ask our next guest that. And with that, Sebastian, I would love to thank you for joining in and having this conversation. And for all the people, as I shared with you, who are listening or watching this, we've linked Alphana into the description wherever you are. Please go ahead, check it out. It'll help you create content pieces, like 30 plus content pieces for your ideas, for your video, for your podcast. That should be helpful. Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you so much.